Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. William Scott White, yes, an official scientist of the Midnight Society. The one and only expert geologist has once again decided to awaken me from my slumber, as it is time to go Dogman and werewolf hunting. Well, now that has been taken care of, and I do feel my power has oozed back through my veins, and Mr. White and myself have once again decided to go cryptid hunting.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, you have tuned in once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. William White, one of the scientists, yes, involved with the Midnight Society, and one of my co-hosts and good friends, has once again decided to set up the late night fire so that we can burn the early morning timber in an attempt to figure out what is occurring. William, my guy, how the heck you been?
I've been great. Settled back down in Southwest Ohio, and I'll be staying here for a few months at least. No big trips. So just things are starting to thaw out too. Feels a lot better to go outside nowadays.
Oh, man, I can only imagine. I mean, I'm up here in the Northeast. I mean, I've definitely had it taken to me with the coldness for the majority of my life. But yeah, I can definitely see how it's not fully enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
What else you been up to, man?
Oh, just same old, running my businesses and working out and, pursuing my hobbies, taking care of my kids. So, yeah, just life, regular life.
That's great stuff, man. I actually was thinking about you the other day when I had one of my hosts on, and he was explaining how black bears consistently open his car and eat his chips and things, and he has bear prints all over the inside of his car. Well, you know how people are always wondering why this Bigfoot or this Dogman doesn't just open the door. Mm-hmm. Well, that right there, some people would be like, oh, its claws are too big, etc. Man, there's nothing like a hand on a bear at all. Okay, that is exactly. 100% a paw with massive claws, and it has no problem opening the door and figuring it out. I definitely am starting to float towards the side of when they're just messing with the door handles and things. I really just think they're trying to screw with you, more or less. Get out of here. We don't want you here, because they could have easily ripped the door off. And bears are smart, but I'm just saying a bear does not have anything that looks like a hand, and it consistently opens people's doors.
Yeah, those are good observations. I mean, shoot, I've had dogs. My parents have a couple dogs that are smart enough to figure out door handles, not doorknobs. Doorknobs take a little bit more grip strength and dexterity, but if the door has a handle on it, they know how to push it and open and get it to unlatch and open. Yeah, I mean, a bear can figure it out. Anything with fingers is going to be able to figure out a knob, no problem. So yeah, if they're not coming in, it's just because they don't want to, or maybe they can't. Maybe they're like vampires, and
Hmm.
have to be invited in, that sort of thing. Because I mean, shoot, you talk to people who live in bear territory, brown bear or black bear, and them breaking into houses is a real thing. They smell food, they'll go into houses, they'll raid the pantry, the fridge. So even if they can't work the door, they're big enough a lot of times to just smash it down if they want to. And obviously, according to all the witnesses, Dogman is just as big and strong and could easily smash down a door. So
Spot on, my friend. And I love how you said that too, because the button on like the side door, I mean, obviously she can't do the handle, my squirrel, but she can jump up and hit that little side button to pop the screen door. It's hilarious.
oh yeah. I mean, shoot, people, even like rodents like squirrels, people underestimate the intelligence of mammals. Mammals, they can learn. They can learn patterns and cause and effect. I mean, even the smallest, simplest mammals are light years ahead of reptiles or birds or other organisms. So yeah, never underestimate a mammal. It'll figure things out if it needs to.
Love how you say that, because yeah, she knows certain spots where I have to get up onto like a step stool to get her. Like if she has to go to bed and she doesn't want to, or she's consuming something that she shouldn't have because she knows how to open up the Triscuits and stuff. And like,
Right.
so now it's super funny. And actually, again, I was thinking about you. You've probably heard of this, and I did share it with one of my other hosts, but can't be talked about enough because it's Linda Godfrey. Have you ever heard the encounter that one of her son's really good friends and also another friend had?
I don't think so. I mean, I've listened. I've read some of her books and listened to her on various podcasts. I may have, but nothing's coming to mind right now.
Wow, maybe I can
Enlighten
fill
me.
up a file cabinet in your brain like you always
Yeah.
do here. Her son was involved in this, and this was when Linda was a rookie reporter and basically had just more or less started getting these strange Bray Road sightings and stuff filtered into her. Her son knew these two boys very well, which means Linda did as well, because they were over hanging out with him all the time. Well, these two boys had been sledding for the day, were getting cold, and decided, let's head home. They saw what looked to be a dog, they thought, breaking through the ice in a nearby creek, getting a drink. I don't know where this aspect comes into play because it wouldn't have been my first thought, but these two boys then decided they wanted to go over and try to pet it.
Okay.
Keep in mind, though, I believe they were like 10, 13, 12-ish. They weren't that old at this point in time, but I mean, old enough to understand what's going on and be out on their own. And as they approached this thing, it whipped its head around, and they said it did not look like a dog whatsoever. They screamed and began running, and it pursued them for a bit, but same thing like we always talk about, risk reward. As they got closer to the neighbors and such, and civilization more or less, I mean, because they weren't that far away, it decided to gear off and kind of run in the other direction. Yeah, I've heard pretty much the majority of Linda's stuff, but as I heard her speak about that the other night on Monsters and Mysteries in America, I was like, whoa, I've never heard that. That's legendary.
Yeah, I have not heard that one before. Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Yeah, once again, it makes you think what are these things? What's their purpose? Because by all accounts, they're fast. They're people, the way they describe the move. I mean, I figure they got to be running at least 30 to 45 miles an hour, if not faster. So even the fastest human, like Usain Bolt in a sprint, might hit like 30 or 31 miles per hour, for a very short distance. So if they want to catch a couple boys, even if they're like running their hearts out, they could catch the boys in a short amount of time, So the fact that it didn't, like I said, why don't they break into houses? Why don't they catch the people they chase? What is their reason, to do what they do, to be here, to, interact with people aggressively and yet generally not harming them,
Yeah, that's some great astute observations, because I was trying to tell that to people the other day. I mean, almost every supposed fatal Dogman encounter on people has never been able to be verified. Yes, we can
Right.
verify attacks on pets and cattle, but any animal is going to do that. Like I broke that down the other night. You and I go to the grocery store. Technically, we should be hunters and gatherers, okay? But we have a grocery store. I mean, do you and I want to go out and gather our food all day when you can go to the grocery store? Is it no different than a predator that realizes you have caged in animals that can go nowhere? It's a free picking. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we would be easy prey, and shoot, nowadays, they biologists will say that sharks don't attack people. They don't want to attack people, right? When they do, it's an accident. I'm not sure I believe that, but the reason being that people don't have a high enough fat content. Sharks live in cold water. Fat has a lot of energy. They want to eat like fat, blubbery fish, or sea mammals like dolphins and whatnot, and the same, I've heard the same set of, land predators that, oh yeah, humans aren't their ideal prey because, we don't have enough fat on us. I mean, have you seen like the average American lately? I mean, there's plenty of fat to go around, and we would be, if it's just looking for a meal, a highly energy dense meal, I can't think of anything better and easier than the average American. So yeah, once again, why aren't they raiding the supermarket, so to speak, the human population? Why are they doing it the hard way? I imagine hunting deer and other animals. It doesn't make sense to me. So.
Yeah, again, that's just what I'm saying. And I've listened to some people deep dive into that. Humans have a lot of sodium, which is imperative in nature for animals. So
Electrolytes,
again,
man. Yep.
Yes, there is nothing that's going to steer people away. And also, I would like to speak to some of these people then. Why, once the animal tastes us, do they want to come back for more?
Mm-hmm.
That would seem like it's enjoying it, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there is that. That's kind of like an old, folk wisdom, right? If an animal has attacked a human or eaten a human, we got to put it down because now it has the taste of human flesh. Now, I don't know if there's any actual science behind that or if that's just something that we've carried down from, days long gone. But yeah, it does, there may be some truth to that, once they realize, oh, these weird creatures that don't have fur and wear, layers of non-consumable, material, they're actually a meal. Maybe an animal does learn that we do taste good and have what they need. I don't know. Maybe we are so different that they generally don't view us as food because we just, what other animal consistently walks on two legs? We have to look pretty freakish to almost any other creature on Earth,
Again, great and astute observations. And something else I was diving into, a lot of people always try to say the elderly or the type of predators that are no longer able to consume healthy prey. That's incorrect again, though. I mean, if you look at the two lions from Ghost in the Darkness, the Savo, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Savo, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Extremely healthy lions, no issues there at all. And then also, if you look at Gustav, I mean, he's not even believed to have been even halfway through his life yet. Still has all of his teeth. Extremely healthy crocodile right there. And I mean, when you look at a lot of time frames in India when these tigers are consuming people, one guy told a nightmare story about how they were taking a nap in the canoe or kayak, whatever the heck they were doing. He wakes up, all four of the other men that were with him are gone. And guess what he hears? Loud splashing, and realizes a tiger is coming to get him. And this must have been the fate of all his friends. He gets away, but again, nothing seemingly wrong with that tiger whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting why some animals behave differently than the majority of them. Now tigers, they apparently do hunt humans on the regular, and so do crocodiles.
Yep.
But so do polar bears apparently. But
yeah, and a lot of not grizzlies, but like certain species like the Kodiak brown bear are extremely aggressive towards people too.
Yeah, Kodiak bears they're definitely kissing cousins with grizzlies. They're just a lot bigger because they eat a ton of salmon. They have just an incredible food source on Kodiak Island. It is gnarly. A lot of questions. Why?
And that's what I mean about trying to just figure that out, because I think they're logical questions that people, really should figure out, because if certain aspects are being like, hey, it's okay to swim, these sharks aren't looking at you as food, well, that's misinformation, because if they are looking at you as food, people should at least understand that and go ahead. If you still are going to go swimming, that's on you now. But to think that any sort of predator just doesn't look at people as food. Again, you have these large eagles in the Amazon and stuff that have consumed younger children, just like they do with primates and things. Again, these are healthy harpy eagles.
Yeah. There definitely have been and still are, to an extent, large birds of prey that would absolutely go after, a small, lightweight child, even if they can't carry them very far. I mean, I know there are birds in the Himalayas that will pick up goats. They can't really lift them off the ground and fly away with them, but they'll hit them with a lot of speed and get them off the ground for a short period of time and drop them off a cliff.
Yes,
and
I've seen
then
that.
they go
Gnarly,
eat them,
bro.
after the fall.
I believe it was on Monster Quest, where they weren't exactly sure the size of the bird, but same thing. It seemed like couldn't get enough velocity to reach back up at the kid because he was fighting, screaming, and kicking at it, and it eventually dropped him, but it was trying. That's scary, man.
Yeah. The Thunderbirds, that's another one of my kind of favorite cryptid groups. The idea of giant prehistoric birds, or even possibly pterodactyls, still existing in certain parts of the world is a fun idea for me. So.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize that, like fruit bats, the flying foxes, they are harmless, but those things are huge, dude.
Yeah, they've got a big wingspan. Like, I don't know, what is it, 3 or 4 feet? It's pretty huge.
Yeah, and their heads are pretty decent size, and I feel like if that was sitting in front of us, that's like what, up to your waist almost, man.
Yeah, it would be uncomfortably large. Like, I would not feel comfortable around it. Bats are not supposed to be that big, at least not in my mind. So.
Right? Creepy. And speaking about another creepy thing, we have shared it around with our science team, and Sonia Lynn Manette, who's part of the Midnight Society, someone shared it in her group, and she was able to track down the initial 2 girls that got the image, where it came from, and we were able to pinpoint it to Minnesota. Unfortunately, they were 2 younger girls that, well, I guess more squeamish about it. They didn't do anything except take the picture, which you can't really blame people. Like Jessica Jones was saying, and Sonia, they would have been moving it around with a stick, getting other angles, trying to look more at the teeth, etc. But again, you can't really expect people that have come across it. I mean, they took the picture for us, which is great. They told us what they found, and when we asked if they could go back, I guess it's not there anymore. Doesn't mean people had to come and take it. Could have been taken by anything.
Oh, yeah, it could have been drug off by coyotes, or some other scavenger. Exactly.
So that doesn't mean, like I said, somebody came by in an unmarked truck and threw it in the back and drove off. Okay, we're not saying that. But what we're saying here is, when you look at that image, it's going to be up on the website to the audience. I can't show this on YouTube. It's too pushing the line of gory. Some people might show it. I'm not about that. All right, I play by the rules, but it will be up on the website. Oddly enough, though, all right, when you look at the back 2 paws, again, I'm not a animal biologist, but they look canine-ish. But here's the problem, because some people on our science team and others think it potentially could be a coyote with mange, but then others on our science team, including myself, see spots, and we don't really see things that look like mange. And even Jody Cook, we all know who he is, the founder of the North American Dogman Project. Same thing. When you look at the back, it looks like a mane, he says, which I agree. And then the jaw, the ears. What the heck is going on here, do you think?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to see many coyotes, even up close and personal. When I lived out in Arizona, it was not abnormal to find one that someone had shot and that had run off into the brush. If you're out hiking in the desert, and it looks nothing like a coyote to me. That thick neck on it is very strange. The shape of its head is kind of blunt and muscular jaw that doesn't really remind me of a coyote. Almost has an underbite, and then the mane seems pretty apparent. So to me, it doesn't look like any sort of North American dog I've seen. Not a wolf, not a coyote, no domestic dog I can think of. It's really, really interesting. I mean, my first impulse when I saw it was, and of course we don't know the size of it just off the picture, but some type of hyena. And regarding that, if anyone sees something cool or whatever and takes a picture, please, for the love of God, put something beside it for scale. Anything that you have in your pocket. If you have a pocket knife, lay the pocket knife beside it. If you have, a pencil is great because that's pretty standard size. A pen, whatever. If you could just
even your
do
foot.
that, even your foot, and then tell us, I have a size 10 foot or whatever. That really helps us, estimate real world size. But yeah, it is a weird picture for sure.
So bizarre, my friend. That's what I'm saying too, is we can't really tell the size. I'm not willing to say it's a type 3 hyena dogman. It doesn't look big enough for that, but we also are working on the theory though that hyenas are involved to an extent, and this would look like a potentially juvenile. So there's a couple of options that could occur, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, it could have been somebody's pet and they couldn't handle it anymore. The reason I say that is Brian Barber from Bigfoot's Barbershop, who was one of my really good friends and also a weekly host ×2 on here. He was called to a scene one time with a friend where this individual had a ton of exotic pets that he was not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
This particular baboon had a bright colored face, so it didn't look like a canine to Brian, but like Brian said, if that bright color to its face wasn't there and it had more of the brown color snow and it was elongated, he could see why people could think it could be canine. But he said it had been strung up in this cage, that its feet were deformed and such because it had no room to move around. It had been in there for so long. And he said this thing's eyes were the craziest yellow he had ever seen. And he said there was not one drop of love in that thing. It just literally looked like the evilest thing he had ever seen. It doesn't say a baboon's evil. It was caged up and treated like crap. But what I'm trying to say is that it had those glowing eyes and such and the crazy looking arms. So we know people are taking these animals in. I mean, Jody has a skull from 2006. Doug Hychak actually said we can show it for science, which is cool. What was that doing in Ohio? Like Jody said, somebody's pet, did it escape from the zoo, etc. This could have been in a pet, could have escaped from a zoo, or is this a spotted hyena species that is actually successfully adapting here, or is it a species that we haven't fully enunciated yet, like the American cave hyenas and such,
What state was that found in again?
Minnesota. Ton of caves too, and forest.
Yeah. So we've talked about the prehistoric American hyena and how there were hyenas here in North America during the Ice Age with the megafauna and all that. It's always possible that there's a remnant population, like we've speculated. Maybe it's a juvenile of that, or more than likely, the easiest answer would be that it's a escaped pet, someone's private zoo, private animal collection, and or an abandoned pet. But yeah, I mean, I lean towards it not being a dog, and it really looks like a hyena to me.
Man, that's so creepy, and I agree with you. And it's just something that every time I get a member of the science team on, we're just trying to figure it out and just try to, what's that doing here? All right, we know that is not a canine that we've seen before. And again, people don't realize hyenas, no relation to canines. All right, you cannot mate a hyena and a canine together. It doesn't work like that. It would have occurred in nature before. I mean, there's plenty of canine species around hyenas.
Oh yeah, there's wild dogs out there in Africa. The African wild dog. There's all sorts. There's domesticated dogs. I think Africa at one time had a population of wolves. Yeah, there are plenty of things that could have, from the dog canine family that could have interbred with hyenas, and they are distantly related, but in the same way that like dogs are distantly related to bears. It's a very distant relationship.
Yeah, a bear and a wolf can't have an offspring.
Right.
Like you said, the reason I brought that up is because it's had opportunities to. I mean, and when things can occur, they occur. Like polar bears and brown bears. I mean, there's certain falcon species that are hybrids. Yes, okay. Those things can occur, but it has to have that pretty close genetic mind and lineage, like a coyote, red wolf, and things like that. Coyotes can, breed with domesticated dogs, and we're actually going to touch base on that in just 1 second. But I sent you something else that I found to be interesting. Not directly just that video, but I don't know how many times I've seen, and the cryptid groups that I honestly have been invited to, I just can't even fathom some of the stuff that's posted consistently, but that's not here or there. That's for another time. But at first glance, I thought it was an Oreo in like cream or something when I clicked on the video. But then you realize it's the sewer grate in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so funny, right? It shows you where my mind was. But either way, it does at first sound strange. Okay,
Yep.
you hear could be an instrument, like some people would say in some of the posts that float around, or it's people down there talking, or it's some sort of cryptid. Okay, all of this. Interesting, right? Well, this is type of video has been floating around ever since I was 11. Back in Boston, what do you think a bunch of 11-year-old kids roaming around the city are going to do? You get in trouble, correct? Or you do things that probably aren't the most intellectual, like venturing down into a sewer. Why? Because we had heard this, and just like everybody else, wow, do you think somebody's down here playing a violin? This guy down here or something? Should we bring them some food? Yeah, is it Pennywise, or do we have the reptilians down there? Squad up. We went down inside there to find the mysterious sound. And I don't encourage anyone to do this, okay? But you can verify what I'm saying. Look around and look it up. Those are actually alarm systems for when there's flowing water coming through and drainage points in time. Once you get in there and you see it and you hear it, all right, there's your issue for the strange noise. But then you go back to the surface. What's the sound like? Pretty creepy, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was a very odd sound that played in the video.
Have you ever heard anything like that before?
Only in movies. I mean, it's the type of thing that, you would expect from a horror movie, creepy music-ish, kind of almost a supernatural sound to it, yeah.
Yeah, you hear those definitely in the big city a lot, man. Like Boston and New York, because there's sewers everywhere, dude. I mean, you want to hear something straight up gnarly, like Ghostbusters down in New York, because of the nastiness, man, little green smog comes up where you think it's like Slimer. Awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's not, dude. You're like, that is so nasty. So that literally looks like what the Ninja Turtles was telling me New York looked like when I was 11. Again, we came out of it on the other end, no issues. Nothing, but yeah, should we have ventured down there? Probably not. We probably could have got an answer from somebody that actually worked on the municipal aspects of the city, right? But
for sure,
again, no one thinks that. Everyone's jumping to the fact that it's got to be a cryptid. So I just wanted to touch base on that too, and just let everybody know we just got to be a little bit more logical on things. All right. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there is that old saying from, medicine is where I heard it from. If you hear hoofbeats, look for a horse, not a zebra. And unless you live in Africa, right? Because in all likelihood, it's going to be the more readily apparent answer than the exotic, out of this world answer. That's not to say that weird stuff doesn't happen. It happens all the time, but it's much more likely something has a very logical, normal, explainable reason for happening, existing, occurring, whatever, than a portal opening in a sewer in this instance. That's not the sound of like the opening of some magical dimension. Which would be cool.
Hell or something.
Yeah. I like that stuff, but unfortunately, it's less likely to happen than say a sewer alarm. So.
Right. And that's just why I brought that up, because when I first saw that too back in the day, bro, it was creepy, man. I mean, and when you still listen to it right then, if I didn't know, that's still creepy. But I know what makes that noise because, well, we went down and tried to figure it out. And what do you think is the reasoning that everybody wants to always jump to the abnormal? I mean, I try to be as logical as possible, especially being a journalist. Ironically, there were owls. I mean, I live in a forested area, but I had never heard this. And one of my co-hosts was saying how strange when owls are in mating season and they're courting each other, the noises they can make, right?
Right.
Well, a couple months later, sure enough, I end up hearing this. But I know because it was mentioned to Sonia, but immediately your mind's like, what the heck is that? Then you're like, wait a second. Those are owls. Sounds so creepy, though.
Absolutely. I'm shooting the first Dogman, exploration trip I went on with Dave Jones back when he was part of the project. We were out in Germantown in the woods, and didn't have any luck. Set up some trail cams, but didn't really experience anything. But on the way back to our vehicles, we hear like it's pitch black. We hear the most crazy call. And I'm thinking, what the heck? Is that like Bigfoot whistling at us? I mean, this is the wildest sound I've heard. But it was like a spotted owl or something. Dave identified it fairly quickly. But if you don't know what you're listening to, you think there's like a forest demon out there with you. And I mean, I think part of it is human nature. We are afraid of the dark, so to speak. We are afraid of the boogeyman, just innately from, whatever genetic memories we have of the past. And so we're always, ready to jump to the conclusion of, the scariest, freakiest thing possible. I think that's part of it. And then I think the other part of it is we kind of live in a society where we're on dopamine overload. We have everything at our fingertips. We have delicious, unhealthy food at our fingertips, relatively cheap. We have instant. I mean, it's different than when I was a kid. Nowadays you can binge watch an entire series at home on your TV without having to go to the video rental store, or wait till next week for the next episode. You could just keep watching videos, getting that dopamine hit. You can, we can live in our own little bubbles of whatever makes us, quote unquote happy. And I think that can burn us out a little bit on those good chemicals that our body makes to reward us for behavior that's enjoyable. And as such, people start to feel like life's a little boring, a little drab, and they're looking for that pizzazz, that thing that'll, make it exciting again. And what would make it more exciting than, the noise you heard on your back porch last night, being, a cryptid instead of just a raccoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's, again, some absolutely epic stuff right there. And I had no idea how many cryptids there are, man, until I saw some sort of, what did they call it? Like an iceberg, more or less. And I only dive into people and, like the hyena and Dogman topic. But I was like, holy crap. And one of them that really sparked my mind real quick, and actually it's interesting to get your take on it, is the whole sheep squatch. What I actually think, my thought is, I do not think a raging goat man like that, or the goat squatch or sheep squatch is running around. But what I do think potentially would be occurring is there's numerous reports I've gotten of dogmen wearing like strange skulls on their head, doing ceremonial type stuff, or wearing like branch crowns. So I think it's either a Sasquatch or a dogman potentially wearing a skull as some sort of symbolism. I don't know. That's my most realistic take on it, because I believe both of those are involved, but I do not believe in sheep squatch or goat man.
Yeah, that I mean, of course, the Sasquatch community in general kind of poo-poos the dogman idea. So here we are poo-pooing the sheep squatch idea. But yeah, I agree. That one never really, sparked my fire. I just always figured people were seeing something and interpreting, whether it was like, hair that was tufted, or, kind of clumped like dreadlocks or whatever, greasy clumps of hair, as horns, or, they were seeing something and interpreting it as like a goat head, a ram head, or something like that, but not actually, encountering a goat-headed being. Of course, goat-headed beings exist in fantasy and in mythology. So, who's to say there aren't, mythical goat-headed beings that interact with humans, but yeah, that would never really spark my fancy.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, my friend. I just try to look at things as meritable and credible as possible. Yep. Quick example, like, hey, the Minotaur and the Centaurs, those are all super cool too, but there's no history to back it up. Whereas you got the Cynocephali and all these other things that there's history to back it up. Whereas those just kind of seem to be like, I don't know, almost entertainment aspects. I mean, they even poke fun out of it in some of the movies they have. I know in one, again, it's a movie, but I personally liked the Hercules with the Rock. Absolutely epic, in my opinion. But the guy that's with him starts, who's always talking about how Hercules' weapons are all magical, when in actuality, Hercules in that movie is pretty much just like a dude that's strong, which is cool. But his buddy starts being like, oh, look it, the centaurs are coming, everybody. And then Hercules is like, the centaurs? Yeah, no, it's not the centaurs. And it was just like some other soldiers coming. That's just what I mean about those things are super cool. But I try to really be able to potentially latch onto things. And I mean, even with sightings, as far as I know, do you know anyone in the world that's ever reported seeing centaurs and minotaurs? I do not.
No, not really. I do know that in Kentucky, they've got quite, the Goat Man legend, in their folklore in several different locations. But I've never actually met someone who claims to have experienced it. I've met a couple people, experienced the Dogman sort of phenomenon, and several people have claimed to have seen Bigfoot, but never anyone who's seen, anything like that.
Bizarre, man. Yeah, super creepy stuff. And as we start to kind of round the corner to the end here, like to the audience, as promised, recently there's been a weird, I don't know if I would say issue or reports. I don't even know if it's new, because who knows how long this has been going on, but new to me that domesticated or former domesticated dogs are being seen running with coyotes and also even wolf packs. And before I get your thoughts on that, I would like to mention something else that I want your thought on. Recently, we got a report where this guy did not bring anything to defend himself, parked his little 4x4, went to go set up his tree stand. Out of the woods comes two pit bulls that were apparently smaller, and then a very large, like German Shepherd looking dog, which potentially could that be our type 2? And he was attacked by these, but this is what I'm saying now. When they attacked him, though, nothing fatal was done, almost seeming like they were like, wait, are we supposed to be attacking people? Didn't they own us at one point in time, seemingly? Because he had scratches and bites all over him, but nothing that, I don't know, 3 things that are accustomed to hunting should have smoked him. Basically, what do you think's going on? Why are these domesticated dogs successfully surviving out in the forest? And also, I always was told that the coyotes, and I've seen it before, lure you out and then they ambush you. Same thing with wolves, but wait a second, these dogs have been living with them for quite a long time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of common knowledge in coyote territory and wolf territory that they'll eat your family pets. They'll get your cat, they'll get your dog. So it is interesting when you find out about, like, domestic animals that have taken up with them and basically been accepted into their pack. They are definitely, dogs and coyotes, dogs and wolves are different species, right? Canis, what is it? Canis familiaris is the name of the domestic dog. Canis latrans is the coyote, and Canis lupus is the wolf. But contrary to popular belief, species that are close enough related can successfully breed and successfully, their offspring, their hybrids can successfully reproduce. And so since they're all in the canid family, they produce viable offspring. So it could simply be that these coyotes or wolves are recognizing that, hey, this maybe they're females or whatever, and the male wolf, the alpha male says, hey, cool, I can mate with them, and yeah, sure, they can be part of the tribe. As far as coyotes go, coyotes are interesting. When they lose too many members of their pack, there's some sort of a pheromone signal that gets released by the females that basically they go into heat a lot more frequently and out of season. And so it's like it's a preservation mechanism where, okay, we've lost too many of our pack, and so we better start making babies to replace them. And so actually there's some thought, in areas of the country where they pay bounties for coyotes, that it may not be all that helpful, because if you got professional hunters out there, wiping out half of a pack, all you're going to do is send the pack into a mating frenzy. And, I'm guessing their gestation period is similar to a dog. My dog's when they had puppies, they were pregnant for 3 months. So, here in 3 months, you're going to have, and they have big litters. Coyotes have big litters. You're going to have 30 more coyotes, pups running around or whatever. So, it could be something along those lines. Maybe a pack that's been decimated, needs to replenish its numbers. Instead of seeing the dogs as food or a threat, you see them as, potential pack mates and new DNA. Maybe that could be it. That's just my speculation.
Great stuff right there. And I had thought of a few of that, but not the majority of that. Wow. Because I have a friend up in Saskatchewan that when I was sharing some of this with him, because he actually does a ton of my animations with my werewolves and stuff, and he's actually doing some stuff, with the Germantown documentary for us at the NADP. I just always talk to him in general, but, explaining how much bigger the wolves up there and stuff. He said that the wolves just literally have no sort of kindness towards coyotes up there. They just consume them like gnarliness. Right. And then you have down here where they breed with each other. It's how pretty much the red wolf is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Red wolf, from what I understand, was a wolf native to the eastern United States, and it's very endangered, but it exists. And they're smaller. They're not, like timber wolves and gray wolves. Canadian gray wolves are monsters. They're huge. They're like, they can be like over 36 inches at their shoulders. But red wolves are smaller, and so they're apparently in the eastern United States populations of coyotes. When they're genetically tested, they all pretty much have some red wolf DNA, suggesting that the coyotes have interbred over and over and over again with the red wolves and kind of created this red wolf coyote hybrid, which, in my experience, eastern coyotes are larger than western coyotes, which could, be because of that hybridization. So.
Beautiful. And like you were saying too, with the coyotes realizing the packs dropping, wolves might do the similar aspects. So there
you go.
Wow, great stuff right there.
And when when a male wolf smells a female canid in heat, he probably doesn't care about species. He's just thinking, how do I mate with this lovely female? So
yes, and correct me again if I am wrong. I thought properly educated that German Shepherds and also like Tam Askins and Huskies are the closest basically domesticated dogs to wolf lineage, and that all those will go feral very quick and can be successful at it.
I could see that. Definitely. I know that Huskies and Malamutes are very, I've heard they're very close to wolves, as genetically, they haven't had that it bred out of them very much over the generations. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. I mean, shoot, most dogs would succeed. Thinking about my time in Brazil. Brazil is full of stray dogs. Now, of course, most of them are living off of trash, right? But but dogs succeed just fine. I mean, they're less healthy. They have worms, whatever. But they can continue their population without the direct assistance of humans. And then you imagine a lot of other larger breeds would have no problem. Rabbits and squirrels and any other critters they could find. My dogs are awesome at catching birds. It's kind of crazy in the summertime when the robins come back. It's just like a slaughterhouse in my backyard. So I mean, yeah, dogs can go for birds. They're very successful at hunting probably anything, because they also have that natural inclination to pack up. So you get enough of them, and they could be a threat to deer, to even humans if they decide to go fully feral. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Now, if you told me that a pack of Chihuahuas was like successfully, doing their own thing in the woods of Pennsylvania, I'd kind of scratch my head at that. But
right, yeah, no, that's a great point too. I mean, look at like African wild dogs. I mean, they're pretty small, but they're successful, and they're going up against some pretty gnarly predators.
Yeah, they've got huge competitors. Hyenas are pretty large. Lions are ginormous.
Leopards, baboons.
Leopards, cheetahs. Yeah, exactly. They got to worry about like packs of very intelligent, very strong, aggressive apes. Chimpanzees,
giant
baboons,
snakes, and crocodiles. That's what I'm saying. Pretty prevalent. And then also a lot of people don't realize with the dingo, they were not domestic to Australia.
Exactly.
got out and escaped and are successful. And dingoes aren't the largest, but those things have been known to attack people and
Sure.
take out livestock. And again, that's just a more or less domesticated dog that has gone feral. So
Well, and that's an interesting point. I remember when I was younger, I was watching a documentary about dogs, and they covered this. I don't know if it was like Detroit or one of these areas of great urban decay. Where there had been a huge thriving community and population of humans, and then due to economic reasons or whatever, now you've got like abandoned houses and factory buildings, and there's just hardly anyone there. Well, there were all these stray dogs that maybe had been left behind or whatever, but they tracked them, and over the generations, as these different breeds of dogs kept breeding together and breeding together and breeding together, it didn't take too many generations before they bred back to a dog that looked a lot like a dingo, and they basically were essentially recreating a population of this kind of proto domestic dog, getting rid of all the silliness that humans have bred into them, the pugs with their short stupid faces and poodles with their curly hair and whatever else, and just got back to this very simple standard functional looking canine. And that I thought that was really interesting, that they could kind of breed back to maybe what they once
should
were or
be,
something.
right? Yeah, great stuff. On a final note, my little brother and my sister-in-law have Shibas, and they kind of look like foxes and dingoes a little bit.
Yeah,
Pretty
they're
cool.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate you hanging out tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to touch base on before we let you get back to things you need to attend to?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah, we had a good conversation again.
Always do, my friend. Well, to the Midnight Society. Unfortunately, this will be the conclusion for the meeting for the early morning hours. But no worries, you can find previous playlists with William's excellent knowledge. And also, he's a bi-weekly host, so no worries, we continuously will have great content to cover. But yes, this is going to be it for tonight. So, William, thanks for hanging out with us, man. I truly do appreciate you.
Absolutely my pleasure.
My creatures of the night, I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out tonight. If you do like my content, please subscribe, share, and feed it to the algorithm. And remember, keep your head on a swivel.